Two kids were caught on camera luring a toddler to his death, while two teens were captured on CCTV with guns killing their schoolmates. But that's not as crazy as the two kids who lured their victim to her death just for fun. These kids are monsters, and their stories will leave you shocked, starting with the James Bulger case. The date was February 12, 1993, a day that would forever change how Britain viewed childhood innocence. In the New Strand shopping centre in Bootle, Merseyside, a small 2-year-old boy named James Patrick Bulger was with his mother when he was abducted. What made this case particularly chilling wasn't just the abduction itself, but who the perpetrators were. The CCTV footage from that day captured an image that would haunt Britain for decades. Two 10-year-old boys, Robert Thompson and John Venables, leading the toddler away by the hand. The grainy security footage showing the small child being led away became one of the most haunting images in British criminal history. What followed was a nightmare scenario that few could comprehend. These two boys led James on a 2.5-mile journey across Liverpool, during which the toddler was seen by approximately 38 bystanders, none of whom intervened decisively. Many likely assumed they were seeing siblings or friends. Who would suspect two children of abducting another? The boys eventually took James to a railway line in Walton, where they subjected him to unimaginable violence. The subsequent autopsy revealed James had suffered 42 distinct injuries, including 10 skull fractures. The brutality of the crime was almost impossible to comprehend, especially given the perpetrators' ages. But what would lead two 10-year-olds to commit such an act? The backgrounds of Thompson and Venables have been extensively analyzed. Robert Thompson, born August 23, 1982, was the fifth of 7 children. His father had abandoned the family 5 years before the murder, and his mother reportedly struggled with depression and had allegedly attempted suicide. Despite these challenges, Thompson was described as street smart and clever, with no prior history of violence. John Venables also came from a troubled background, with a history of involvement with social services. Both boys were classified as children in need, suggesting environmental factors may have contributed to their behavior, though this doesn't explain the extreme nature of their actions. The investigation moved quickly. Thompson and Venables were identified through the CCTV footage and arrested on February 20, 1993. During police interviews, both boys confessed to the crime. Their trial began on November 1, 1993 at Preston Crown Court, where they were tried as adults, a decision that would later be criticized by the European Court of Human Rights in 1999 for being unfair to the defendants. On November 24, 1993, both boys were found guilty, becoming the youngest convicted murderers in modern British history. They were sentenced to detention at Her Majesty's pleasure, essentially an indefinite sentence for minors. The judge initially recommended a minimum term of 8 years, but this was later increased to 10 years by the Lord Chief Justice and further to 15 years by Home Secretary Michael Howard, responding to immense public pressure. However, the House of Lords ultimately overturned this decision in 1997, ruling it unlawful. Both Thompson and Venables were released on lifelong license in June 2001 at age 18, with new identities protected by a worldwide injunction. Their post-release stories diverged dramatically. Robert Thompson has not reoffended publicly and maintains a low profile. John Venables, however, has been recalled to prison multiple times. In 2010, he was imprisoned for possessing child abuse images, released in 2013, and then recalled again in November 2017 for similar offenses. His parole applications have been repeatedly rejected, including in December 2023, with the parole board citing ongoing risks. As of the most recent information available, Venables remains incarcerated. Another pair of kid murderers who were caught on camera and are still in jail committed their heinous act in Ireland. Anna Creel, a modern tragedy. In May 2018, a case eerily reminiscent of the James Bulger tragedy unfolded in Lucan, Ireland, when 14-year-old Anna Creel was murdered by two 13-year-old boys, known in court as Boy A and Boy B. This case shocked Ireland to its core, becoming one of the most harrowing and high-profile criminal cases in recent Irish history. Anna's story begins far from Ireland. Born in Russia in February 2004, she was adopted at age 2 by Geraldine and Patrick Creel, an Irish woman and her French-born husband. The family settled in Lucan, near Dublin, where Anna grew up passionate about dancing and singing, often practicing for hours and sharing her performances on YouTube. Despite her physical maturity, she was described as tall at 5'8" inches and athletically gifted as a swimmer and gymnast. Anna was emotionally vulnerable, described by her mother as a child on the inside. This combination of physical development and emotional immaturity made her a target for bullying at school, where peers would call her weird. She struggled to make friends, which would ultimately play a role in the events leading to her death. The tragedy began unfolding on May 14, 2018. At 4:55 p.m., Boy B visited Anna's home home and told her that boy a boy she had a crush on, wanted to meet her. Excited at this prospect, Anna left with boy B, unaware she was walking into a carefully planned trap. What investigators would later discover was deeply disturbing. According to boy B's eventual statements to police, a month before the murder, boy A had approached him saying, "Hey, want to kill somebody?" and specifically named Anna. Boy B initially thought he was joking, but boy A was deadly serious. Evidence would later show that boy A had prepared what police described as a murder kit, including a zombie mask, black gloves, shin guards, knee pads, a meter-long stick, and a concrete block, clear indicators of premeditation. The boys led Anna to Glenwood House, an abandoned 19th-century farmhouse in Lucan, about 3 kilometers from her home. What happened next was a brutal assault. Boy A attacked Anna with extreme violence, with later evidence showing she had fought desperately for her life. Her naked body was discovered 3 days later by a Garda search team, with clothing scattered around, bloodied pieces of wood, and building tape looped around her neck. The autopsy, conducted by former state pathologist Prof. Marie Cassidy, identified 50 areas of injury on Anna's head and body, concluding the cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head and neck. There was also evidence of sexual assault, with an attempt at penetration, and boy A's semen found on her shirt. The investigation was swift and comprehensive. The Garda examined over 700 hours of CCTV footage, tracing the movements of Anna and the 2 boys on the day of the murder. Cops observed boys A and B walking home from school together, and an hour later, boy B walking to Anna's house and later leading her away from the house. Key forensic evidence included Anna's blood on boy A's boots, his semen on her top, and blood on items from the murder kit. The investigation also utilized advanced technology, including a digital representation of the murder scene by British forensic company Acum, the first use of such technology in Ireland. Boy B, during 16 hours of interviews shown to the jury, admitted to hearing Anna scream and seeing the attack, though he initially lied, claiming he fled when the assault began. His testimony would prove crucial to the prosecution. The trial began on April 29, 2019, and concluded on June 18, 2019, after 7 intense weeks. The jury deliberated for 14 hours and 24 minutes over 5 days before reaching unanimous verdicts of guilty. Both boys had pleaded not guilty, but the evidence was overwhelming. Boy A was found guilty of murder and aggravated sexual assault, while boy B was convicted of murder for his role in luring Anna to her death. On November 5, 2019, boy A received a life sentence with a review after 12 years for murder and a concurrent 12-year sentence for aggravated sexual assault. Boy B received a 15-year sentence with a review after 8 years. One of the most disturbing aspects of the case was the apparent lack of a clear motive. The jury wasn't tasked with determining why the murder occurred, leaving this question to probation and psychological experts to assess before sentencing. Research suggests boy A's crime may have been linked to sexual violence, given the aggravated sexual assault charge, but no definitive motive was established. For boy B, his involvement seems to have been driven by complicity or peer pressure, though this remains speculative. Both boys were initially held at Oberstown Detention Center, with their identities protected under the Children Act, known publicly only as Boy A and Boy B. An additional incident occurred in May 2020, when Boy A, then 15, was assaulted while in detention, suffering minor injuries. Upon turning 18, both were transferred to adult prisons, but legal measures ensure their anonymity for life, with court injunctions against social media platforms like X and Facebook to remove any posts identifying them. But one incident where the killers couldn't stay anonymous is the Columbine High School Massacre. Few events have had as profound an impact on American society and school safety as the Columbine High School Massacre of April 20th, 1999. This tragic incident in Columbine, Colorado, forever changed how we view school safety, teen alienation, and the potential for violence in young people. The perpetrators, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, were seniors at Columbine High School, aged 18 and 17, respectively. Friends since middle school, they would become the architects of what was, at that time, one of the most shocking school shootings in American history. What makes this case particularly disturbing is the extensive planning involved. Harris and Klebold had been preparing their attack for nearly a year, initially intending to detonate bombs in the school cafeteria to cause mass casualties. Their journals and videos, including what became known as the basement tapes, revealed a desire to leave a lasting impression and even outdo the Oklahoma City bombing in terms of deaths. The backgrounds of the two teens have been extensively studied. Eric Harris was born on April 9, 1981, in Wichita, Kansas. His family moved frequently due to his father's Air Force career before settling in Colorado in 1992. He was described as charismatic but quick to anger, with a fascination for war. Dylan Klebold, born on September 11, 1981, in Lakewood, Colorado, was initially shy but later became short-tempered. Both worked at Blackjack Pizza and shared interests in computers and bowling. After extensive analysis, the FBI concluded that Harris was a psychopath with narcissistic traits and a lack of empathy, while Klebold was characterized as an angry depressive seeking vengeance. They had assembled an arsenal, including a High-Point 995 carbine, Savage 67H pump shotgun, an Intratec Tech DC-9 handgun, and a Stevens 311D sawed-off shotgun, along with numerous homemade bombs. The attack began at 11:20 a.m. on April 20th, 1999. The pair arrived with duffel bags containing propane bombs, which they placed in the cafeteria, set to detonate during the busiest lunch period. When these bombs failed to explode, they began shooting outside the school, killing their first victim, 17-year-old Rachel Scott. They then entered the school, shooting in the hallways and injuring several students. Witnesses reported them laughing and shouting, "This is what we always wanted to do, this is awesome," as they moved through the building. At 11:36 a.m., they entered the library, where the most devastating carnage occurred. They targeted students hiding under tables, killing 10 and injuring 12 more in just 8 minutes. After leaving the library, they wandered the halls, tossing pipe bombs and shooting sporadically. They eventually returned to the library, where both committed suicide at 12:08 p.m., ending the 49-minute rampage that left 13 dead and 23 injured. The shooting lasted less than 20 minutes, but SWAT teams didn't enter until 47 minutes after it started, and control of the scene wasn't declared for 5 hours, a response that would be heavily criticized and lead to changes in police protocols for active shooter situations. But while the shooters here targeted school kids, this next guy decided to take on the most difficult task in the world, killing a U.S. president. Thomas Matthew Crooks, the Trump rally shooter. Our next case brings us to much more recent events. The attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump on July 13, 2024, in Butler, Pennsylvania. The perpetrator was 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, a young man whose actions shocked the nation and added another disturbing chapter to America's history of political violence. Born on September 20, 2003, Thomas Matthew Crooks lived approximately 70 kilometers from the site of the attack with his parents, Matthew Brian Crooks and Mary Elizabeth Crooks, née Frizzy, both licensed professional counselors, and his sister, Catherine Lynn Crooks. By most accounts, Crooks came from a stable family environment, making his actions all the more difficult to comprehend. His political affiliations present a confusing picture. Crooks registered as a Republican in September 2021 and voted in the 2022 midterm elections. However, he also donated $15 to the Progressive Turnout Project via ActBlue on January 20, 2021, during Biden's inauguration, though he unsubscribed from the group in 2022. The FBI has not identified a clear political motive for his actions. What has emerged from the investigation is evidence of extensive planning. Crooks began researching Trump's campaign schedule as early as late September 2023, with over 60 searches related to Trump or Biden in the 30 days before the attack. His search history revealed a disturbing interest in explosive devices, with queries dating back to September 2019 for terms like detonating cord, blasting cap, how to make a bomb from fertilizer, and how do remote detonators work. On July 6, 2024, he searched, "How far was Oswald from Kennedy?" regarding the Kennedy assassination, a chilling foreshadowing of his own attempt. He also conducted detailed research on the Butler rally venue, searching, "Where will Trump speak from at Butler Farm Show podium, and Butler Farm Show photos?" He visited the Butler County Fairgrounds at least once before the attempt, spending 20 minutes surveying on July 7th, and practiced firing at a shooting range on July 12, 2024. On the day of the rally, Crooks purchased 50 rounds of ammunition and flew a drone near the venue, apparently conducting surveillance. He had requested a day off work, telling colleagues he had something important to do, but would return the next day. His parents called police hours before the shooting, reporting him missing and expressing concern about his well-being, a tragic detail that suggests they may have sensed something was wrong, but could not have anticipated the magnitude of what was to come. The events of July 13th, 2024 unfolded with devastating speed. During Trump's rally near Butler, Crooks climbed onto a police staging area building. Text messages from a police sniper indicated awareness of him 90 minutes before the shooting, raising questions about the security response. Using an AR-15-style rifle legally purchased by his father in 2013 and transferred to him in 2023, Crooks fired 8 rounds from approximately 135 meters, 443 feet. The shots wounded Trump in the upper right ear, killed Corey Comparatore, a 50-year-old volunteer fire chief, and critically critically injured David Dutch, 57, and James Copenhaver, 74. 3 others, including Trump and 4 officers, were injured by flying debris. The Secret Service counter-sniper team killed Crooks with a single gunshot to the head at 6:11 p.m., ending the attack. The subsequent investigation revealed further disturbing details. Bomb-making materials were found in Crooks' vehicle and home, with a remote detonator on his body. 2 explosive devices in his car had receivers for remote detonation, but were switched off and non-functional. All the components were legal and available online. Crooks had made over 25 firearms-related purchases from online vendors using aliases since spring 2023, using foreign-based encrypted email accounts for purchasing firearm components, chemicals, and explosives. The FBI, leading the investigation, has classified the incident as an assassination attempt and potential domestic terrorism. They have conducted nearly 1,000 interviews, analyzed hundreds of hours of video, and accessed Crooks' phone within 40 minutes of the attack, revealing his extensive search history. As of May 1, 2025, no definitive motive has been determined, with the FBI stating he acted alone and found no co-conspirators or foreign connections. But in this next case, the killer disappeared into thin air while his co-conspirators were caught. Leo Bert, the teenage bomber who vanished. On the morning of August 24, 1970, a bomb made from 1,700 pounds of fertilizer, 100 gallons of gasoline, and an ANFO explosive mix detonated outside Sterling Hall at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. The explosion killed 33-year-old physics researcher Robert Fastnacht, injured 3 others, and caused between $2.1 million and $6 million in damage. The blast was so powerful it could be heard from 30 miles away. Among the perpetrators was a 22-year-old former university rowing athlete named Leo Frederick Bert, who was born on April 18, 1948 in Darby, Pennsylvania. Unlike the other cases we've examined, this story has no conclusion. Bert vanished after the bombing and remains a fugitive to this day, one of the longest-running manhunts in American history. Bert's early life gave little indication of the radical path he would later take. He grew up in a stable Catholic family in Havertown, Pennsylvania, attending St. Denis Parochial School and Monsignor Bonner High School. A talented athlete, he excelled at rowing, becoming a mainstay on the varsity 8 team and winning the Junior 8s title at the American Henley in 1968. Academically gifted with SAT scores over 1,200, Bert graduated high school in 1966 and chose the University of Wisconsin-Madison for its rowing program. At Wisconsin, Bert's life took a significant turn. He initially occupied the numbered 8 seat in the freshman boat, but quit rowing after a dispute with a coach over his haircut. He shifted his focus to journalism and student politics, working at the Daily Cardinal, the student newspaper, where he covered anti-war protests. This immersion in the anti-war movement of the late 1960s appears to have been a crucial factor in his radicalization. Bert's radicalization intensified after he was reportedly beaten by police while covering a protest against the Kent State shootings. This experience seems to have deepened his involvement in the anti-war movement and potentially set him on the path to violence. In July 1970, Bert introduced fellow bombers David Fine and Carl Armstrong, setting the stage for the Sterling Hall bombing. The target was the Army Mathematics Research Center, seen by activists as contributing to the Vietnam War effort through military research. The bombing was planned as a protest against U.S. military involvement in Vietnam. On the night of the bombing, the perpetrators had intended to issue a warning call, but seeing lights and activity in the building, Bert, reportedly feverish, asked, "Do we go ahead?" before proceeding with the plan. They had chosen a time they believed the building would be empty after the summer session, but their assumption proved tragically wrong. Following the bombing, Bert fled to Canada and was last heard from on August 30, 1970, when he escaped police in Peterborough, Ontario, leaving behind a wallet with the alias Eugene Donald Fieldston. He was indicted on September 2, 1970, for sabotage, destruction of government property, and conspiracy, and added to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list on September 4, 1970. Despite one of the most extensive manhunts in FBI history, Bert has never been captured. He was removed from the FBI's most wanted list on April 7, 1976, when it was felt he no longer fit the criteria, but he remains a fugitive with state charges pending. The FBI continues to offer a $150,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. Over the decades, numerous unverified sightings have been reported in locations ranging from Hawaii to Costa Rica, Colorado to Algeria, Cuba to Canada. A notable claimed encounter came from Joe Muldowney, a former rowing teammate, who believed he saw Bert on Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia, in the mid-1970s. In 2010, 2010, a man claimed to have spotted Bert at a Denver homeless shelter, while other unverified reports include sightings by a waitress in Cleveland and someone working at a Costa Rican resort. Theories about Bert's fate abound. Some suggest he works for the FBI, others believe he is a college professor in Canada, and many, including his brother Donald Bert, believe he is deceased. Tom Bates once asserted Bert was the Unabomber, a theory later disproven by Ted Kaczynski's capture. In 2023, marking the 53rd anniversary of the bombing, the FBI released age-processed photos envisioning Bert as a 75-year-old, mostly bald, with and without glasses, in an effort to generate new leads. These efforts have not yielded confirmed results as of May 2025. Public interest in the case persists, with articles like a 2018 Channel 3000 piece noting his 70th birthday passing without acknowledgement, assuming he is alive. A 2014 Philadelphia Inquirer series focused on him as a home state boy who transformed from promising athlete to fugitive bomber. The FBI file remains active, with sealed records and evidence including a typewriter and a 1972 Liberation article, and tips often spike around bombing anniversaries. The Sterling Hall bombing has been described by the FBI as the largest act of domestic terror in U.S. history at the time. It has been explored in documentaries like The Bombing of Sterling Hall, 1998, by Lemark Communications, and The War at Home, 1979, as well as books including Rads by Tom Bates and The Madison Bombings by Michael Morris. What makes Bert's case particularly fascinating is not just the crime itself, but the complete disappearance that followed. In an age of digital footprints and surveillance, it's increasingly difficult to imagine someone vanishing so completely. Yet Leo Bert, if still alive, would be in his mid-70s today, having potentially lived more than 50 years as a fugitive, a ghost from one of America's most turbulent political eras. If you enjoyed this chilling stories, click on the boxes playing on your screen to watch similar content.